Well, hello everybody. My name's Jeff. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And Marilyn had asked me probably 3 months ago or better if I could do this, share my story thing on in a video and post it to the group page. And I've known about it for 2, 3 months. And then she texted me this morning and said if I was ready for tomorrow morning. I said, oh crap. Nothing like procrastination, right? So anyway, here's my feeble attempt to put it together the night before it's supposed to be posted. And anyhow, again, alcoholic, Jeff, alcoholic addict, and drugs are a part of my story for sure. And I guess when it first, before I ever took a drink or taken any mind altering, mood altering chemicals, I just wasn't happy with who I was. I guess I was wasn't comfortable in my own skin, or I just wanted to be somebody different. I guess I wasn't. I didn't know how to be okay with Jeff, and granted, I had a pretty stable upbringing. Mother and father were loving and a bit over controlling, probably, but nobody's perfect by any means. And but father didn't take part in my life so much as my mother did, and mother was very disciplinary. And she was the disciplinary, and the only way she knew how to discipline us kids was through whippings. Getting whipped with a belt, and she did it pretty regular. My dad always kind of hid out, and never took part in that part of my life, but I did learn a lot from my father too over the years, but anyway, that was kind of the beginning of it. And I'd see these other guys in school. They had all the girls and had all the attention and the prestige, and I thought I wanted that too, right? And so when the opportunity arose, I was 16 years old, I suppose, when I took my first drink, which would have been beer. I'm going to shut this TV off so I don't have that glare in my glasses here. And I had my first drink of beer, just like a family. My father did not drink. Periodically he'd drink a beer or maybe a mixed drink or something. But he never drank alcoholically. And my mother either, or my brother. I mean, I got one brother, younger brother, 2 years younger, and he had other addictions, but drinking and drugs weren't part of it. That his was other things, and so anyway, I was kind of a black sheep in that respect. And but boy, I tell you, once I got that in my system, once I took that drink, and I got that feeling, I got that. I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling, I'm feeling smarter. I'm feeling bigger. I'm feeling stronger, and I'm feeling better looking. And whatever. Everything had just really worked for me. And then I started drinking alcoholically pretty much from the get go. And within just a couple of years, I was already just off and running with the alcohol, and then my parents didn't. I was totally against everything my parents stood for, that my family stood for. They weren't cool, right? They weren't cool. They weren't part of the cool crowd, and so I started hanging out with these other friends that I thought were cool and into things. It was more of an adventure for me, and most of them were older. I never seemed to hang out with anybody my own age. It was either older or younger, and I got hooked up with these older people, and actually ran away from home at one point, and anyway, I ran away from. I was still getting whipped with a belt. 16 years old, and I mean, I just and I just didn't know how to handle it, and I ran out of the house crying. I was going to go live with this other guy and his girlfriend that, was probably, 4 or 5 years older than I was. And so I did that. I took off, ran away, and then came back home at one point, and Mom was doing the reverse psychology thing at that time. She had all my luggage. She had a suitcase packed for me, thinking, well, we're going to see how he reacts and we get his stuff ready to go. And I was actually okay with it. I took the suitcase and left. And it kind of freaked her out, And but being 16 years old and I wasn't going to school, she legally can make me come back home. So I came back home until I was 18. I was ready to move out. I mean, I had everything I owned, which was very little. And everything I owned moved out into another house. I was kind of hanging out with these older guys, and it was a hippie house. I've been a crack house by today's standards, probably. 4 or 5 of us all living in the same house. Mattresses on the floor, sleeping on the couch, and so anyway, I was already had my furniture or stereo. I think stereo was my most prized possession at that time. It was for a lot of years, and I had it all moved out into this other guy's place already over on would have been on K Street, I think is what it was at that time. And so I had it already moved out. When I turned 18, I moved out right away. I dropped out of school. They couldn't keep me in school. And in fact, but I was always a worker. I always had a job. And I was working. And they tried, even in school, they tried putting me on a work program to where I worked half a day and went to school half a day. And then I got to where I'd only go to one class, but I'd go to work all day, And I remember one of the first jobs I had at that time was Godfather's Pizza downtown. It was upstairs Glass Menagerie at that time. Probably would have been 1975, I'm guessing. And so anyway, I followed this path for a while. The drinking and drugs were taking me on a whole nother direction in life now. And I know the good friends that I had before this were all worried about me and telling me they were concerned, Jeff, you probably should not be getting into that. They weren't cool anymore. They weren't part of the cool crowd. I'm thinking I'm part of this cool crowd now, and I was anything but cool, nothing. But I let my hair grow long, bell-bottom jeans, tie-dyed shirts or whatever, and I was total hippie. But I went along this path for a while, and then I got into a bad place with these guys that I was living with. We lived in a house on 22nd and S for like 6 months. There were 6 of us lived in the house. It was Jack and Gail, Dan Ludi, and whatever girl he was sleeping with, and Bubba and me. And we both had we all had separate rooms, of course, and it was a hippie house. It was a crack house, and we started having keg parties in there, big parties every weekend, 100 people or more, and just tearing the place up. And it was craziness. We ended up getting into some illegal stuff. We'd had some government checks showed up at the house there one year from the people that lived there before, and we were able to sign them and take them down and cash them. These are IRS return checks. Felony if I was to get busted for that at that time. And then we were breaking into hotels and stealing TVs and just absolutely crazy stuff. And I got real nervous on the direction I'm headed now, and I can't seem to survive. I was working somewhere all the time, though. Lincoln Carpet Mills, Dressograph, Godfather's Pizza, auto mechanic. At one point I decided joining the Army sounded like a good idea, right? And actually it was a good idea. It didn't seem like it for that when I was in there, but it was definitely a good idea that I did what I did. And otherwise I probably would have gone to jail for some of the things I was into. And so anyway, I joined the Army in 1976, and the smartest thing I ever in my life, I think, is I had it in writing when I joined and when I went and talked to the recruiter, that I had in writing that I was gonna go to Germany and I wanted to work on helicopters. You know, I wanted to be a helicopter mechanic. I wanted to be involved with aircraft, and because I had it in writing, I got to do what I wanted to do. The guys that did not have it in writing, they just pretty much, your government property. They're going to put you wherever they want to put you. They're going to tell you all these good things to get you in there and get you going. But you know, when basic training's over and when your training's over, they're going to put you wherever they want you. And that's what happened to quite a few guys. But I got to go to Germany for 2.5 years, and it's a very major, memorable part of my life. And but I got into a lot of things, you know, heavier drugs. I was away from home. We didn't have the social media or the communications back then like we got now. My only communication with my family was long distance phone calls, and so they didn't see me, you know, escalate into my addictions the way I was escalating. I escalated pretty bad over there. You know, I was drinking pretty heavy just about all the time. I was high pretty much practically, and I got into heroin. I got into syringes, and I liked that a lot once I started doing it. But I got into a lot of trouble off and on. I was real lucky I didn't do any real time in Germany. But I hooked up with these German dudes, and they were taking me all over the place. They were taking me to places that a lot of the GIs never got to go to. And I remember I took off, went to Amsterdam, Holland. At one point, I was confined to quarters on a drunken disorderly, and I'd taken off. A friend of mine, who was a pharmacist in the dispensary there, they were taking off. They were going up to Amsterdam to buy some drugs, of course. And and I wanted to go really bad, so I had somebody type up the border crossing papers for me and sign the commander's name to them. And I took off while I'm confined to quarters for 30 days. I take off and go out of the country. All of this I could have done some serious time for if I'd ever gotten busted for it. And you can get the jitters now just talking about it. And anyway, I took off, went to Amsterdam, Holland for a weekend is all. But I mean, I'm out of the country, and we're coming back with drugs, and I mean, it's just crazy stuff, crazy. So anyway, I went along that route, and I finally got out with an honorable discharge by the hair of my teeth. I was very close to me going to jail there at the end. I got in a fight with a guy, and commander was looking for me, and I just kept telling the runner that was looking, trying to give me the message that commander wanted to see me again. I'd been up before the post commander, full bird colonel, twice on drunken disorderlies. And now they guaranteed me. They called me in once. I had a year left to do before I got out, and the XO assistant commander or whatever he was, he offered me. He says, "Jeff, we're offering you a discharge right now. If you take it right now, you go home. Once your time's up, you can have it changed to an honorable. And but if you do not take this discharge at this point, I'll guarantee you the next time you get in trouble is a court-martial. No question about it. It's going to be a court-martial." And I said, "No, sir, I don't want it. I just want to do my time. I want to do my time, and I want to go home." And so anyway, I skated through most of the year, but there was a period right there at the end where I got into a fight, and it was over drugs. And knocked each other around up third floor there, knocked some holes in the wall, and the commander got word of it. And if he'd have got me into the office, I probably wouldn't have made it to Frankfurt to get on the airplane, for one thing. So yeah, needless to say, then I get out of the Army in '79. I'm trying to, and I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm doing heroin almost daily. So I started I tried to wean myself off of heroin by drinking real heavy, and it kind of worked. I didn't have to. I didn't take any more heroin after I got back to the States, back to Nebraska. But I was still using a syringe, and I had this girl let me moved in with her after she knew me before I went in and wrote me the whole time I was in there. Had this image in her head of having this, military guy, respectable, and disciplined and mature and gonna move in and maybe make a life with this guy. Boy, I ruined that really quick. That didn't take a month before that was over with, and we're fighting like we've been married for 10 years. And so anyway, and then it was 82 before I finally, I got a job at a factory here in town, Quebecor, American Signature at that time. And I worked there almost 20 years. I got almost 20 years in at that place, but I was 2 years into it, drinking, and I got in some a hit and run, no insurance, and threatening to throw me in jail, if I didn't go to treatment. And if I had known at that time that I could take work release, and gone to work from jail, I'd have done that in a heartbeat, but I didn't know that. So the only reason I went to treatment was to save my job. If I missed one more day of work, I was going to lose my job. And for some reason, my job has always been a big thing to me. I've always worked, and I always seemed to have a job somewhere, and then so that scared me when they told me I was going to lose my job now. And I've been really close. I've been really close to losing. It didn't seem to matter too many times before that, but they were run on a point system, and you get 12 points in a 12-month period, and then you're done. You're fired. And there's many warnings up to that point, but I never seem to heed them warnings too much until it happens, until I'm really faced with the consequences. But I had a good 2 years there drinking, and it really, that environment. Well, I tell you what, if you're a warm body and they can stand you up to the machine or something, they're not gonna, they'll let you in the door, whether you're drunk or not. In fact, before I started there, they were actually drinking in there, drinking up on the machines, but that kind of went bye before I started. And it was in second shift factory work is such a strong drinking environment too. And it was hard. It was kind of hard sobering up with that. Third shift, second shift work, and but I did. I went through treatment, and I went through treatment in 1982, and I have not found it necessary to take a drink or any mood altering chemicals since then. And I'm so very grateful for that. I've celebrated 38 years here, December 4th of last year, and I'm eternally grateful for that, for sure. And I can't believe, like I've heard so many other guys say, I don't know if it amazes anybody else, but it sure amazes the shit out of me. So I drank there for a couple of years, and a lot of heavy parties, and drugs, a lot of speed, a lot of amphetamines. Of course, towards the end, my drinking got so bad. I was on that scale. I don't forget what you call a scale where you start out with a 6-pack of beer, you get drunk, you build tolerance. You're up to a case, and you're still before you get drunk, and then you go back down that scale. You go back down the other side, back to where you're. I was back down to where 2 or 3 beers, I was already getting drunk, and I couldn't hang. I couldn't hang with my friends, and you know. And whatever. So I'm taking a lot of amphetamines now too, just so I can hang and drink all day. And boy, that's a nasty, serious anger, crazy anger with alcohol and amphetamines, crazy anger. And so anyway, I decided I got into that DWI, and I put it off. And the lawyer called me, said, if you don't go in this week, Jeff, or this month, you're going to jail. So then I went and got my evaluation over at the Independence Center. I go in and get my evaluation at the Independence Center, and for the first time in my life, I became willing, or I was almost relieved, I guess, and mainly because the people I'm talking to were you guys. It was people that's been through. That's what you're telling me anyway. You're telling me you're an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic, an addict, and the people, the counselors that I'm talking to are recovering alcoholics, and so I felt comfortable talking to most of you, most of them, for the first time in a long, long time. Any other time I got in trouble was just law enforcement, or somebody that hadn't been where I'd been and didn't understand what I was going through, and it was just too easy to con them, for one thing. You guys, you're fucked up. Well, excuse my language, but I mean, I could not con you for nothing, and still can't. And believe me, I tried in the beginning, first 5 years, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. I tried, and I still got issues with it too. If I don't keep doing this program, if I don't keep working the steps and coming to these meetings, I fall right back into that same old way of thinking. Very short period of time, and so anyway, it took me a while to. Well, I backtrack here. I'm kind of getting my thinking's kind of messed up, surprisingly. I I became willing at that time for some reason to be honest, as honest as I could possibly be about my problem, and and I guess that was another thing about it. I felt some love there. I felt some love with the people I'm talking to before. Before that it was just strictly authority. Trying to manipulate me or force me to do something that I didn't think I want to do. But I could tell there's some love and some understanding coming from the people I'm talking to now. And so anyway, I felt comfortable, and I forget who it was, the counselor was, but they were asking me how much I had to drink in a week's time, and I said, I honestly can't tell you. It's maybe 4 cases of beer, a couple bottles of whiskey, maybe a bottle of tequila, mostly whiskey, though I was a Jack Daniels drinker, and used to keep a bottle in the freezer, and it won't freeze, 90% alcohol, it won't freeze, and I could drink it ice cold all night long, I didn't have to mix it with anything. And so I didn't know for sure what I drank, and they asked me how many drugs or what drugs I took, and I said whatever you put in front of me. If it was something I thought I could get high on, I was going to take it. I'd go over to friends' houses, I'd go through their parents' medicine cabinets, looking at pill bottles, and if they were taking something for painkillers, and it'd say take 2 every 4 hours, I'd take 4 or 5 of them right off the bat. Um, and there wasn't nothing I wouldn't take. Like again, I was doing probably a lot of cocaine and a lot of amphetamines and a lot of marijuana smoking, of course. And so I was trying to get as honest as I possibly could. And then they labeled me a chronic alcoholic of all things. Not just an alcoholic. I went to the next level now. I'm a chronic alcoholic. I thought that was a little extreme. And so then they set me up, that I could come in, I could be there in a week. And I think I was after that I did that little thing so I could tell my lawyer I'd done the evaluation, that I was lined up to go in. And then he called me at one point if I didn't get in like that month. And I went in on December 4th. And I was in over Christmas and New Year's. And there wasn't but about 10 of us in inpatient at that time. It was a pretty small group. A very huge impact on me for sure. And that group therapy and trying to get to getting me to admit that I'm an alcoholic, and the unmanageability was very extreme. The group, they wouldn't allow you to. We'd go through the first 5 steps in treatment. It's kind of express AA. It's not AA, it's treatment, but they did work the 12 steps of the program, or had us work the 12 steps of the program. And my feeble attempt at trying to admit I'm an alcoholic, and I'm just, and I'm thinking I'm thinking I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm trying. I thought I was being honest, right? And I'd try to give my first step in the group, and the group would not accept it, and the group had to accept your steps before you could move on to the next one. Not just the counselor, the fellow participants had to agree, I had to accept it. And, and of course, Gene Lowe was my counselor, that little shit, he was a powerful little guy. And had very not many words, didn't say many words, but boy, what he did say evidently worked, and but he kept saying, he kept telling me, Jeff, you're admitting you're alcoholic, but we'd like to see some more of your, unmanageability. And I just didn't understand, unmanageability. I just, I seem to be managing fine. I've got a job. I'm holding a job. I got my own place to live. I got a vehicle. I'm supporting myself. Pretty much. But everything's falling apart. Everything's falling apart for me. My job's in jeopardy. The girl I was with, we're broke up at the time. I'm short of, I lived in a basement apartment at 10th and D, $150 a month, and even in '82 that was cheap. And I could never come up with a whole month's rent. It was like I was drinking it all. I'd have to go and pay my bar tab from the week before and start all over again. I didn't have much money left for rent and groceries and that type of stuff. So it was crazy. So my life was definitely unmanageable. I couldn't manage it, but I had a hard time admitting that. That was the tough thing for me. That was a real tough thing for me, was to admit my unmanageability. It took 3 weeks. I was in treatment for 3 weeks of a 4-week program before they would accept my first step. So now I got 1 week to do. I got 1 week to do 2, 3, 4, and 5, and so I had my work cut out for me. But anyway, I did. I got into, and I started buckling down a little better, a little more, and because of fear more than anything. Not because I really wanted to. I wanted to go home. They did let me go home